I need to share something with you today that's been weighing on my heart for months. This is probably the most difficult story I've ever told, but I think it's important that people hear it. 6 months ago, I was supposed to have the wedding of my dreams. Everything was perfect: the dress, the venue, 200 guests, and the man I thought was my soulmate waiting for me at the altar. But instead of saying "I do," I said 4 words that changed everything. I can't do this. Now, before you think I'm just another runaway bride who got cold feet, let me tell you why I stopped my own wedding. It wasn't because I didn't love my fiancé. It wasn't because I found someone else. It was because 48 hours before our ceremony, I discovered that the man I was about to marry was my half-brother. I know that sounds impossible. I know you're probably thinking, how does that even happen? Well, grab something to drink, get comfortable, because this story has more twists than you can imagine. And by the end of it, you'll never look at those DNA ancestry tests the same way again. 2 months ago, I was Maya Chen, 28, living my best life in Portland with my fiancé, Ethan Brooks. We'd been together for 3 years, and honestly, he was perfect. Software engineer, kind, funny, and those eyes. God, those beautiful green eyes that I thought I'd wake up to for the rest of my life. We had our dream wedding planned. June 17th, 2024. St. Mary's Cathedral, 200 guests, $50,000 already spent. My dress was hanging in my closet, his tux was ready, and I was supposed to be the happiest woman alive. Instead, I became the woman who destroyed everything with 4 words. I can't do this. But let me back up. Let me tell you how a simple DNA test turned my fairy tale into a nightmare. It started with my health. For months, I'd been having these weird symptoms: fatigue, joint pain, random rashes. My doctor kept saying stress, but something felt off. My family medical history was limited. Mom, do we have any autoimmune diseases in the family? Anything I should know about? I asked my mother, Linda Chen, one afternoon. Honey, you know your father and I struggled to have you. We went through so much fertility treatment, I honestly don't remember all the details, she replied. My parents had been open about their fertility struggles. 7 years of trying, multiple doctors, finally success at the Sterling Fertility Center in 1995. I was their miracle baby. Ethan was always supportive. Babe, maybe you should do one of those DNA tests. They tell you about health predispositions now, he suggested one evening as I showed him health articles I'd been reading. You think? I asked. Can't hurt, right? Plus, I'm curious about your ancestry. You might be part Viking or something, he laughed, pulling me close. Ethan was always supportive like that. Whatever I needed, he was there. It's one of the reasons I fell so hard for him. So on April 15th, 2024, I ordered an Ancestry DNA kit. 30 minutes online, spit in a tube, mail it off. Simple, right? I was expecting to learn I was 50% Chinese, maybe some European mix from my dad's side. I had no idea I was about to uncover the biggest medical fraud in Oregon history, and that my entire life was built on a lie. While waiting for results, life continued. Wedding planning consumed everything: flowers, catering, seating charts. Ethan's family, my family, everyone was so excited. Maya, you look incredible. Ethan's going to cry when he sees you, my little sister Sophie said during my dress fitting. She was my maid of honor and had been planning this day almost as much as I had. Think so? I asked, admiring myself in the mirror. Are you kidding? That man worships the ground you walk on. Everyone was so happy for us. We had our bachelor and bachelorette parties. His friends kept joking about how whipped he was, how he'd found the one. My friends kept saying we were relationship goals. The DNA results were supposed to take 6 to 8 weeks. I checked my email daily, partly curious, partly hoping for answers about my health issues. June 15th, 2 days before our wedding. I was addressing thank you cards for early gifts when my phone buzzed. Your Ancestry DNA results are ready. I remember thinking, perfect timing, something fun to distract me from wedding stress. I clicked that email expecting to learn about my heritage. Instead, I was about to discover that everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. And that wasn't even the worst part. I made myself a cup of tea, sat down at my laptop, and logged into my Ancestry DNA account. I was expecting pie charts and percentages. 40% East Asian, 30% Northern European, that kind of thing. The ethnicity results loaded first: 52% Chinese, 48% Northern European. Pretty much what I expected from my parents. But then I scrolled down to the DNA matches section. That's when I saw something that made no sense. It said I had a close family match, someone sharing 25% of my DNA. The relationship estimate said half-sibling. "What the hell?" I said out loud to my empty apartment. I stared at the screen. Half-sibling? That was impossible. I only had one sibling, my sister Sophie, and she was definitely my full sister. We looked exactly alike. I called Ancestry DNA customer service immediately. "Hi, I think there's an error in my results. It's showing I have a half-sibling, but that's not possible." "Ma'am, our DNA matching is 99.9% accurate. Sometimes families have surprises they weren't aware of," the representative replied. Surprises. That's what she called it. A surprise. The match was with someone named Aria Santos, 26 years old, living in Portland. The system estimated we shared a parent. But which parent? Then I saw more. Noah Williams, estimated first cousin. Zoe Martinez, estimated half-sibling. Lucas Thompson, estimated half-sibling. My hands started shaking. This wasn't a mistake. There were too many matches, all around my age, all in the Portland area. Something was very, very wrong. I spent the next 3 hours going down a rabbit hole. I messaged Aria Santos, the closest match. Her response came back within an hour. "Hi, Maya. I've been waiting for you to show up. I think we need to talk. Did your mother go to Sterling Fertility Center in the 90s? Sterling Fertility Center. My blood went cold. That was where my parents went for treatment. I called my mother immediately. "Mom, I need to ask you something about the fertility clinic." "Honey, why are you asking about that now? It's 2 days before your wedding," she replied, confused. "Just humor me. Do you remember the doctor's name?" "Dr. Sterling. Dr. Richard Sterling. He was the head of the clinic. Very respected." "Why?" I hung up and stared at my phone. Dr. Richard Sterling. I Googled him immediately. What I found made my stomach drop. Fertility doctor under investigation. Multiple families claim fraud. DNA tests reveal doctor used own sperm. Article after article. Dr. Richard Sterling had been using his own sperm to impregnate patients without their knowledge or consent. For over 20 years. My phone rang. Aria Santos. "Maya, I know this is overwhelming, but we need to meet. There's something else you need to know." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "How many DNA matches do you see in our family group?" I scrolled through the matches. "I don't know. 20? 25? Try 40. And Maya, one of them might be someone you know." I met Aria at a coffee shop downtown. She looked like me. Same eyes, same nose structure. It was like looking at a cousin I'd never met. "I've been tracking this for 2 years. Ever since I found out Dr. Sterling was my biological father," she said, pulling out a thick notebook. "How many of us are there?" I asked. "That we know of? 43. All born between 1985 and 2005, all in the Portland area." She had a whole notebook, names, birth dates, photos she'd found on social media. It was like a family tree from hell. "Maya, I need to ask you something. Are you dating anyone seriously?" "I'm getting married in 2 days." "Why?" I replied, confused by the sudden change in topic. Aria's face went pale. "What's his name?" "Ethan Brooks." "Why are you asking me this?" There was a long pause. Aria flipped through her notebook with shaking hands. "Maya, I think you need to sit down." She turned the notebook toward me. There, on page 12, was a photo she'd pulled from Facebook. Ethan at his college graduation, and underneath, in her handwriting, "Ethan Brooks, DOB 3-15, 1994. Mother, Rebecca Brooks, Sterling Fertility Center patient, 1993. No. This is not happening," I whispered. "Maya, I'm so sorry." According to the DNA, Ethan Brooks is your half-brother. I ran. I literally ran out of that coffee shop and didn't stop until I was home. But I couldn't escape the truth. The man I was supposed to marry in 36 hours was my half-brother. I sat on my bathroom floor and had a full panic attack. Everything made sense now. Why Ethan and I looked so similar that people always commented on it. Why we had the same mannerisms, the same laugh, the same weird food preferences. My wedding dress was hanging 3 feet away from me, $50,000 spent, 200 guests flying in, and I was about to destroy it all. But first, I had to be absolutely sure. I spent the entire night researching. Ethan's mother, Rebecca Brooks, born 1965, married Michael Brooks in 1990. Struggled with infertility for 3 years. I remembered Ethan telling me about his parents' fertility struggles, how grateful they were to Dr. Sterling for making their dreams come true, how Ethan and his twin brother Ryan were miracle babies. Ryan, Ethan's twin brother. If Ethan was Dr. Sterling's son, then Ryan was too, which meant I had been hanging out with not one, but 2 half-brothers for 3 years. I looked at every photo of us together with new eyes. The family resemblance was obvious now. How had no one noticed? How had we not noticed? I logged back into Ancestry DNA. There it was. Ethan Brooks, 96.8% DNA match. Estimated relationship, half-sibling. Shared DNA, 1-847 centimorgans. I Googled what that meant. 1-847 centimorgans between half-siblings was textbook. There was no doubt, no margin of error. Ethan Brooks, the love of my life, was my half-brother. My phone kept buzzing, reminders about the rehearsal dinner, texts from bridesmaids, calls from the caterer. The world was moving forward with our wedding while my world was falling apart. I stared at my engagement ring, 3 months of Ethan's salary. He'd been so proud when he proposed, so excited about our future together. Our kids, our life, our kids. Oh God. What if we'd had kids? What if I hadn't done this DNA test? What if we'd lived our whole lives not knowing? At 6 a.m. I called the Sterling Fertility Center. It had been closed since 2018, but I found Dr. Sterling's personal practice. Dr. Sterling is retired, but I can take a message, the receptionist said. Tell him Maya Chen called. Tell him I know what he did to my mother, and I know about Ethan Brooks. There was a pause. I'll give him the message. An hour later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Miss Chen? This is Dr. Richard Sterling. I understand you have some questions. His voice was calm, clinical, like he was discussing the weather. Questions? I have 43 half-siblings because of you. I'm supposed to marry one of them tomorrow. Questions doesn't begin to cover it. I see you've been talking to the Santos girl. Look, Miss Chen, what happened was a different time. We were helping families. We were giving people the gift of life. With your sperm, without their consent. The sperm donors we used weren't always reliable. Sometimes we had to make difficult decisions to help our patients. Difficult decisions? You used your own sperm on dozens of women without telling them. Miss Chen, I suggest you think very carefully about what you do with this information. You have a wedding tomorrow, a life to live. Sometimes ignorance truly is bliss. He hung up. I sat there, phone in my hand, realizing that Dr. Sterling felt no remorse. None. To him, we were just successful procedures, products of his difficult decisions. The rehearsal dinner was that night. I had to face Ethan, both our families, our wedding party, and pretend everything was normal. I stood in front of my mirror, trying to put on makeup with shaking hands. How do you look at the man you love and see your brother? How do you smile at his parents knowing they're victims of the same crime as your parents? Ethan picked me up at 6 p.m. You look beautiful, babe. Ready for tomorrow? I looked at him, really looked at him. The green eyes I'd fallen in love with. The smile that made my heart skip. The hands that had held mine through 3 years of life together. Maya, you okay? You seem distant. Just wedding nerves, I lied. The rehearsal dinner was torture. Ethan's best man gave a speech about how we were meant to be together. My maid of honor talked about our perfect love story. His parents toasted to gaining a daughter. My parents toasted to gaining a son. If they only knew how literally true that was. I excused myself to the bathroom 3 times to throw up. The stress, the lies, the knowledge that I was sitting at a table with my biological father's victims. It was too much. "Tomorrow, I marry the love of my life," Ethan said in his speech, looking directly at me. "Maya, you've made me the happiest man alive. I can't wait to start our family together." Start our family. I almost broke down right there. After dinner, Ethan walked me to my car. "One more night, and then you're stuck with me forever," he joked, kissing me goodnight. "Ethan, I started, then stopped. How do you tell someone their entire life is a lie?" "I love you too," he said, misunderstanding my hesitation. "See you at the altar tomorrow." I drove home, knowing I had 12 hours to decide, destroy both our lives with the truth, or live a lie forever. I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch all night, staring at my wedding dress, holding the DNA results printout. At 7 a.m., my bridesmaids arrived. Hair, makeup, champagne, laughter, they were so excited. I felt like I was watching it all happen to someone else. "Maya, you're glowing," my makeup artist said. "Brides always have this special radiance." If only she knew it was actually nausea and terror. Sophie kept taking pictures. "I can't believe my big sister is getting married. Mom and Dad are so proud." My parents. They had no idea that their fertility doctor had violated them in the most intimate way possible. That their miracle baby was actually the product of medical fraud. "Something borrowed, something blue," Sophie said, handing me our grandmother's necklace. Grandma would have loved to see this day. I put on the necklace with trembling fingers. In 3 hours, I was supposed to walk down the aisle to marry my half-brother. My phone buzzed. Text from Ethan. "Can't wait to see you in that dress. Love you forever. Forever." The word felt like a knife in my chest. The limo arrived to take us to the church. My bridesmaids were chattering excitedly, taking selfies, drinking champagne. I sat in silence, watching Portland blur past the window. At the church, I could see guests arriving. Ethan's college friends, our co-workers, family members who'd flown in from across the country. 200 people who had no idea they were about to witness either a wedding or a disaster. "Maya, you need to eat something," Sophie said, offering me a granola bar. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think. I could barely breathe. The wedding coordinator knocked on the bridal suite door. "Ladies, it's time." This was it, the moment of truth. I picked up my bouquet, white roses and baby's breath, the same flowers Ethan's mother had carried at her wedding. The irony wasn't lost on me. We lined up for the processional. Sophie squeezed my hand. "You've got this, sis." The music started. Canon in D, just like we'd planned. The doors opened, and I could see the church filled with people. At the altar, Ethan stood in his black tux, looking more handsome than I'd ever seen him. He smiled when he saw me, and I saw tears in his eyes. Happy tears. He had no idea his world was about to end. I walked down that aisle feeling like I was walking to my execution. Every step felt impossible. The faces of our guests blurred together. All I could see was Ethan, waiting for me with such love and trust in his eyes. When I reached the altar, he whispered, "You're so beautiful." "I'm the luckiest man alive." Father Martinez began the ceremony. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Maya and Ethan in holy matrimony." I looked out at the congregation, Ethan's parents in the front row, beaming with pride. My parents, crying happy tears. Sophie, recording everything on her phone. "Marriage is a sacred bond," Father Martinez continued, "built on love, trust, and honesty." Honesty. The word echoed in my head. If anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace. Silence. This was my moment. I could speak now, or I could let this happen and live with the consequences forever. Father Martinez turned to me. "Maya, Do you take Ethan to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, till death do you part? I looked into Ethan's eyes. I saw our entire future there. The house we'd planned to buy, the kids we'd talked about having, the life we'd dreamed of building together, and I knew I couldn't do it. I started, my voice barely a whisper. Maya? Ethan asked, concerned. I looked out at the congregation, 200 faces staring at me expectantly. I can't, I said louder this time. I can't do this. Gasps echoed through the church. Ethan's face went white. Maya, what's wrong? He asked. I dropped my bouquet. The white roses scattered across the altar steps. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We need to talk, privately, now. I took his hand and led him toward the vestry, leaving 200 confused guests and a church full of chaos behind us. In the small vestry behind the altar, Ethan and I faced each other. I could hear the murmur of confused voices from the sanctuary. Maya, what the hell is going on? We have 200 people out there waiting for us to get married. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking. Ethan, I need to show you something, and I need you to sit down. I don't want to sit down. I want to know why you just humiliated me in front of everyone we know. Please, please sit down. He sat on a small chair, his face a mixture of confusion and hurt. I'd never seen him look so lost. 2 days ago, I got my DNA results back, I began. Your DNA results? Maya, what does that have to do with our wedding? I showed him my phone screen. This is what it showed. I have 43 half-siblings in the Portland area. Ethan stared at the screen. I don't understand. What does this have to do with us? Ethan, you're one of them. The color drained from his face. What are you talking about? We're half-siblings. We share the same biological father. That's impossible. My father is Michael Brooks. No, Ethan. Your biological father is Dr. Richard Sterling, the fertility doctor your mother went to. The same doctor my mother went to. I showed him the DNA match. Ethan Brooks, 96.8% match, half-sibling. Ethan stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he looked up at me. This is some kind of mistake. I wish it was. I called Dr. Sterling. He admitted everything. He used his own sperm on dozens of patients without their consent for over 20 years. You're telling me that my entire life is a lie? I'm telling you that we're both victims of medical fraud, and that we can't get married. Ethan stood up abruptly, pacing the small room. This is insane. This can't be real. Ethan, I know this is overwhelming. Overwhelming? Maya, you just told me that the woman I love is my sister, that my father isn't my father, that our entire relationship is... He couldn't finish the sentence. I know, I whispered. I know how this sounds, but it's true. There was a knock on the vestry door. Maya? Ethan? Is everything all right? It was my father. Ethan and I looked at each other. We have to tell them, I said. Tell them what? That their children are freaks of nature? We're not freaks, Ethan. We're victims. We opened the door. Both sets of parents were standing there, along with Sophie and Ryan, Ethan's twin brother. What's going on? My mother asked. The guests are getting restless. I took a deep breath. Mom, Dad, Rebecca, Michael, we need to tell you something about Dr. Sterling. Rebecca Brooks went pale at the mention of the name. What about Dr. Sterling? He used his own sperm. On both of you, without your consent. The silence was deafening. What are you saying? Michael Brooks asked. I'm saying that Ethan and I are half-siblings, that Dr. Sterling is our biological father. My mother sat down heavily. That's impossible. I have the DNA results. I've spoken to Dr. Sterling. He admitted everything. Rebecca Brooks started crying. He told us the sperm came from medical students, anonymous donors. He lied, I said simply. To all of you. Ryan spoke up for the first time. If Ethan is Dr. Sterling's son, then so am I. Yes, I confirmed. You're my half-brother too. The weight of it all hit everyone at once. 2 families destroyed by one man's lies. What do we do now? Sophie asked, her voice small. We cancel the wedding, I said, and we figure out how to move forward from here. Ethan finally spoke. I need some air. I need to think. He walked out, leaving me standing there in my wedding dress, surrounded by the wreckage of our lives. But our story was far from over. The week after our canceled wedding was a blur. Ethan and I didn't speak. He was staying with Ryan, trying to process everything. I was at my parents' house, fielding calls from confused relatives and dealing with vendors demanding payment for services not rendered. The story had leaked to local media. Wedding canceled due to DNA discovery. Fertility fraud rocks Portland. Siblings almost marry due to doctor's deception. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. On day 7, I woke up feeling nauseous. At first, I thought it was stress. But when the nausea persisted for 3 days straight, a horrible thought occurred to me. I drove to the pharmacy and bought a pregnancy test. 2 pink lines. I stared at that test for 20 minutes, hoping the lines would disappear. But they didn't. I was pregnant with my half-brother's baby. I called Aria, the only person who might understand. Maya? How are you holding up? Aria, I need to ask you something. If 2 half-siblings have a child, what are the risks? There was a pause. Maya, are you pregnant? Yes. Oh, honey. Okay, let me be honest with you. The risks are higher than normal, but they're not as high as people think. We're talking about a 4 to 6% chance of birth defects instead of the normal 2 to 3%. It's not ideal, but it's not a death sentence either. What do I do? You have options, but first, you need to tell Ethan. I texted Ethan. We need to talk. It's important. He agreed to meet me at the coffee shop where Aria had first told me the truth. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. You look terrible, he said when he saw me. Thanks. You too. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. Ethan, I have something to tell you. And I need you to hear me out before you react. More bad news? I don't think I can handle any more revelations, Maya. I'm pregnant. He stared at me. You're... What? I'm pregnant. About 6 weeks along. It happened before we found out about everything. Ethan put his head in his hands. This just keeps getting worse. I know this is complicated. Complicated? Maya, we're half-siblings who are having a baby together. Complicated doesn't begin to cover it. I've been thinking about this for 3 days, and I think we can make this work. How? How can we possibly make this work? We co-parent, as siblings, as family. We raise this child together, but not as a couple. Ethan looked up at me. You want to keep the baby? I want us to decide together. This child didn't ask for any of this. But if we choose to move forward, we do it right. We do it honestly. What about the risks? What if the baby has problems? There are risks, but they're not as high as you might think. And we'll have the best medical care. We'll monitor everything. Ethan was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. If we do this, if we really do this, we tell the child the truth. When they're old enough to understand. Agreed. And we both date other people. We don't let this situation stop us from finding real love. Agreed. And we get therapy. Lots of therapy. Already started. He smiled for the first time since our wedding day. You really think we can do this? I think we can try. 6 months later, I was visibly pregnant and feeling better than I had in years. Ethan and I had found our rhythm as co-parents and siblings. It wasn't easy, but it was working. We joined a support group for Dr. Sterling's victims. All 43 of us had connected, forming an unlikely but strong family. We called ourselves the Sterling siblings, and we'd become each other's support system. Dr. Sterling had been arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud and sexual assault. His medical license was revoked, and he was facing 20 years in prison. Justice was finally being served. Ethan had started dating someone new, a wonderful woman named Jessica who knew our entire story and accepted it. I was happy for him. Really, truly happy. I was also seeing someone, a kind man named David who worked at the support group and understood complicated family dynamics better than most. How are you feeling about everything? My therapist asked. during one of our sessions. Grateful, I said, surprising myself. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm grateful. If I hadn't done that DNA test, Ethan and I would have lived our whole lives not knowing. We might have had multiple children before finding out. This way, we can make informed choices. And the baby? I rubbed my growing belly. This baby is going to be so loved. They'll have 2 parents who care about them, 42 aunts and uncles, and a family that chose each other rather than just being stuck with each other. The baby kicked, as if agreeing with me. You know what the strangest part is? I continued. Dr. Sterling thought he was playing God. He thought he was creating perfect families. In a way, he did create a family, just not the way he intended. 3 months later, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. We named her Hope. Ethan was in the delivery room, holding my hand as his sister, not as my partner. When Hope was born, she was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and the same green eyes that ran in Dr. Sterling's genetic line. She's beautiful, Ethan whispered, tears in his eyes. She's ours, I replied. All of ours. And she was. Hope Sterling Chen Brooks became the princess of our unconventional family. 43 aunts and uncles who spoiled her rotten. 2 parents who loved her fiercely. And a story that, while it started with deception and fraud, ended with truth, love, and hope. Dr. Sterling had tried to play God with our lives, but in the end, we created something he never could have planned. A real family built on choice, honesty, and unconditional love. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the most beautiful outcomes. Our family is proof of that. And Hope? She's going to grow up knowing exactly where she came from, surrounded by people who chose to love her. That's more than most kids get. As for Ethan and me, we're siblings now, real siblings. And honestly, I think we're better at being brother and sister than we ever were at being a couple. Life has a funny way of working out, doesn't it? If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Would you have done the DNA test? Would you have stopped the wedding? How would you have handled this situation? And if you know someone who's done fertility treatments, please share this story. Dr. Sterling wasn't the only doctor who did this. There are hundreds of families out there who still don't know the truth about their origins. Your support means everything to me. If you want to help me keep telling these important stories, a super thanks goes a long way. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and remember, family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who choose to love you, no matter what.